The snow was falling hard when Olivia Turner rushed out of the hospital, tears stinging her eyes. She'd just been told that missing her clinical shift meant failing her nursing practicum. 3 years of work, thousands in student loans. All her dreams of becoming a nurse gone, because she'd been late one time, but she hadn't been late without reason. 2 hours earlier, Olivia had been walking to the hospital for her shift when she noticed an elderly man slumped against a brick wall in an alley. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, and his eyes were unfocused, confused. Everyone else on the busy street walked past without stopping, but Olivia couldn't. She knelt beside him in the snow, her white nursing uniform immediately soaking through at the knees. "Sir, can you hear me? My name is Olivia. I'm a nursing student. Can you tell me what happened?" The old man looked at her with cloudy eyes. "Fell, hit my head." Nobody stopped. Olivia examined the wound carefully. It wasn't life-threatening, but it needed attention, and the man was showing signs of mild hypothermia. She pulled her first aid kit from her bag and began cleaning the wound. "What's your name, sir?" "Walter. Walter Morrison." "Okay, Walter. I'm going to take care of this cut, and then we're going to get you somewhere warm." She worked methodically, just like she'd been trained. Clean the wound, apply pressure, bandage carefully. Walter watched her with increasing clarity as his confusion faded. "You're going to be late for something," he said quietly. "I can tell." Olivia glanced at her watch. Her shift had started 10 minutes ago. "It doesn't matter. You matter more. That's not how the world works, young lady." "Maybe not, but it's how I work." She finished bandaging his head, then helped him to his feet. A coffee shop nearby let them sit inside while Olivia called for an ambulance to properly evaluate Walter. By the time paramedics arrived and she'd given them all the information, she was over an hour late. Her clinical supervisor had been unsympathetic. Rules were rules. Attendance was mandatory. One strike and you're out. Now Olivia stood on the snowy street, her nursing career over before it began, wondering how doing the right thing had cost her everything. The next morning, Olivia sat in her tiny apartment, staring at withdrawal paperwork from the nursing program. Without passing her practicum, she couldn't continue. Without her degree, she couldn't work as a nurse. Without work, she couldn't pay her loans. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find a tall man in an expensive black coat standing in the hallway. He was perhaps 35, with dark hair and intense eyes that seemed to assess her immediately. "Olivia Turner?" he asked. "Yes. My name is James Morrison. I believe you helped my father yesterday." Olivia blinked. "Walter? Is he okay?" "He's fine, thanks to you. May I come in?" Olivia stepped aside, suddenly aware of how small and shabby her apartment was to someone wearing a coat that probably cost more than her monthly rent. James looked around, but made no comment about the space. Instead, he said, "My father told me what you did. How you stopped when no one else would. How you were clearly rushing somewhere important but chose to help him anyway. Anyone would have done the same." "No," James said firmly. "They wouldn't. I watched the security footage from the building across the street. 47 people walked past my father in 20 minutes. You were the only one who stopped." Olivia didn't know what to say to that. "My father also told me you mentioned being late for something at a hospital. It wasn't difficult to figure out which one." James paused. "I spoke with the nursing program director this morning." Olivia's heart sank. "You didn't have to do that. I don't want special treatment. I didn't ask for special treatment. I asked if they knew why you were late. They didn't. They hadn't bothered to find out." James's jaw tightened. When I explained what happened, the director was less than impressed with how the situation was handled. "Your clinical supervisor has been spoken to, and your practicum status has been reinstated." Olivia felt her knees go weak. "What? You're back in the program? You haven't failed anything. I don't understand. Why would you do this?" James was quiet for a moment. "My mother died 3 years ago. She collapsed on a busy street during a heart attack. People walked around her for almost 10 minutes before someone finally stopped to help. By then, it was too late. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm so sorry. My father called me last night and told me what you did. How you sacrificed something important to yourself to help a stranger. I knew I had to find you. People like you are rare, Olivia. The world needs more nurses with your instincts, not fewer." I was just doing what anyone should do. Okay. But what anyone should do and what anyone actually does are very different things. You chose compassion over convenience. That matters. James reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Olivia opened it to find a check for an amount that made her gasp. "I can't accept this. It's a scholarship. The Morrison Foundation funds healthcare education for students who demonstrate exceptional character. Consider yourself the first recipient." James smiled slightly. "My father was quite insistent. He said, and I quote, 'That young lady has the hands of a healer and the heart of a saint.'" Olivia laughed through her tears. "He's very kind. He's very stubborn. And so am I. So please, don't argue." Over the following months, Olivia completed her nursing degree with honors. The Morrison Foundation scholarship covered not just her remaining tuition, but also her living expenses, allowing her to focus entirely on her studies. She visited Walter regularly, bringing him homemade soup and listening to his stories about his late wife. She learned that James had built his father's small construction company into a massive corporation, but that he'd lost himself in work after his mother's death. "He works too hard," Walter told her one afternoon. "Doesn't take care of himself. Doesn't let anyone in. But since he met you, something's different. He smiles more." Olivia blushed. "We've only talked a few times. Quality over quantity, my dear. You taught him something he'd forgotten, that strangers are worth stopping for. That kindness matters more than schedules." On her graduation day, both Walter and James attended. Walter cheered the loudest when her name was called, and James presented her with a job offer. Head nurse at a new community health clinic the Morrison Foundation was opening in an underserved neighborhood. "Need someone who understands that healthcare isn't just about medicine," James explained. "It's about seeing people, really seeing them. You do that naturally? I don't know what to say. Say yes? And maybe also say yes to dinner sometime, if you're interested." Olivia smiled. "You're asking me out while offering me a job. Isn't that a conflict of interest?" "Probably. But I've learned recently that sometimes the right thing and the proper thing aren't the same. You taught me that." A year later, the community clinic had served over 3,000 patients. Olivia had hired a staff of nurses who shared her philosophy. Every patient matters. Every story deserves attention. Every person is worth stopping for. James had learned to work less and live more. Walter had become the unofficial grandfather of the clinic, visiting weekly to tell stories to children in the waiting room. And on the anniversary of that snowy day, when Olivia had knelt in an alley to bandage a stranger's wound, James proposed to her in that same spot. "Okay, this is where you changed my life," he said. "By helping my father, you helped me remember what matters. You showed me that the measure of a person isn't their success or wealth. It's whether they stop when others walk by." Olivia said, "Yes, of course." And at their wedding, Walter gave a toast that made everyone cry. "My son found the woman of his dreams because she chose compassion over convenience, because she saw an old man bleeding in the snow and decided he was worth being laid for." He raised his glass to Olivia, who taught us all that the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. Sometimes missing an appointment leads to finding your purpose. Sometimes bandaging a stranger's wound heals your own heart. And sometimes the person you stop to help turns out to be connected to everything you've been looking for. Never walk past someone who needs you. You never know whose life you might save, including your own, if this story touched your heart. Please like and share it with someone who believes in the power of stopping to help. Subscribe for more stories about unexpected connections and the ripple effects of kindness. Leave a comment about a time when helping a stranger led to something unexpected. Your stories inspire us all.